this is Madison and this is my Chapter 13 video. The first question is, what definition of curriculum do you prefer and why? The curriculum definition I prefer is in terms of specific subject matter such as math, science, English, and history. I prefer this definition because personally I like knowing what exactly is expected of me as a teacher and how I'm going to achieve the school district's goals. I teach math. I want to know what math textbook I'm using and what resources are available for me to use. For example, if I were to apply for a job in the future, one of the first things I would ask is what math curriculum they use and what tools and textbooks and resources and how are they teaching math to students. Actually, over the past couple years, my district has been working on our math curriculum, and I'm fairly new to teaching, so this has helped me gain a deeper understanding of what a math curriculum really entails. Second question, I prefer the behavioral approach. This approach has been widely used for a number of years now. It's very thorough and addresses specific goals and states the objectives clearly and precisely. It talks about learning outcomes and what students should be able to know or understand after they have completed a course. And this type of curriculum is one that closely resembles my current curriculum. Each learning goal is clearly stated, so I know what exactly my students need to learn. The math curriculum I follow is based off our math textbook, Holt-McDougall, and the Nebraska State Standards. We have been going through our textbook and looking at each chapter and matching up the state standards with the material, and we also include math vocab words that the Nebraska Department of Education has selected that students should be able to define, and we put down kind of a ballpark time when this material should be taught throughout the year. We also use evaluation methods such as chapter tests, map testing, NISA testing, and C4L quizzes to determine whether the curriculum was effective or ineffective. In my experience, this approach has been fairly easy to follow. It's similar to a checklist as you move throughout the school year. The next question, when talking about what curricula or criteria to use when developing a curriculum, I really thought Ralph Tyler did a good job outlining 5 general principles in selecting learning experiences. And number 1 is there must be experiences for learners to practice what they are required to learn. And I believe this to be very true. I do a lot of spiral math review. You can't just give students the feeling that after they take a chapter test that they can just forget everything they learn. So I do several review problems every day that don't necessarily have to do anything with that day's lesson. I also make quizzes to check and see what the students know and what I need to cover again. We also have block scheduling, which is awesome. I have 3 classes a day and 90 minutes each class, and I get the same kids all year round, so it's amazing. But for that 90 minutes, 30 minutes of that work time has to be dedicated to letting students work on their homework, and that's very beneficial for students. Number 2, students need satisfying experiences to keep interested. I do have a daily routine, but I try to change some things up to keep students interested. So some days I have them work with partners. I might show them a video. I made a math scavenger hunt last year that had the students going all around the school solving math problems, and there was a prize at the end, and they really liked that. I also use whiteboards and markers to let my students do example problems as I go through the lesson, and if you give kids whiteboards and markers, that will keep them engaged. You have to make sure they're not using them while you're teaching, but they will participate because they love whiteboards and markers. Number 3, learning experiences must be appropriate to the students' present attainments. The other math teacher and myself actually split the 7th grade class up for their 8th grade year, so they're either in 8th grade math or algebra. And so this gives me a pretty good idea of what level my 8th graders are at. I also do informal assessments during class to get a feel if my students are grasping the information or not. I do lots of different testing and get thumbs up or questions. I really try and give a feel on my students, how they're doing throughout the whole lesson. Number 4, capitalize on the interest of students. I kind of talked about this before, but I do change up my lessons. We go outside of the classroom, the whiteboards and markers. I do math review games. I talk a lot about college and the importance of math, and also on the importance of math in the workforce. It's a very, big part of the world. And the last one, number 5, the learning experience can have many outcomes and students can develop ideas in other subjects. We talk about the importance of other classes. I do a lot of examples with science. I think science and math kind of correlate well together. So for instance, when discussing the scientific notation, I tell them that when they get older, they won't just be using this in math, but they'll be using it in their science classes as well. And I think those 5 principles are great resources to use when developing a curriculum. Next question. If I were a curriculum leader, how would I involve teachers and students in the curriculum implementation process? And I kind of mentioned this. I mentioned this early about how my district is working on the math curriculum right now. I would probably do things in a similar manner. Each person in our district is part of a PLC, a professional learning community, and each subject area has their own PLC. And the middle school, we get together once a week to discuss things, but we usually work on our curriculum with the high school too. Like, we all get together, and that usually happens on staff development days. We'll take an afternoon and work on it, and we'll bring our books and we'll work through the chapters, and we fill out a Google Doc that has everything that we need to be looking for in each chapter. I think it's very important to include teachers in the process because they are the ones implementing it in their classroom. I think the students are involved in the process by kind of seeing how they are, if they're learning the material or not. By looking at all of our assessments, we can see, is our curriculum meeting the needs of what the students need to know, or is it not? Do we need to make adjustments? Okay, the last question is, why is change difficult to implement in schools? And I think it's difficult because most people seem to be afraid of change. Teachers may not want to adjust their way of teaching, or maybe haven't stayed up on the newest ideas and technology, so they may be overwhelmed with all the new information that is out there. Some educators may view change as work. They think that their way of teaching is fine and don't want to, or haven't been modifying their teaching methods. Another factor that causes people to resist change is the speed at which things are changing. They think that if they learn something new this year, by next year, they won't be using it anymore, and they'll have to learn something new all over again. Money was also an issue they talked about. I do like one part of our readings that said that change can cause administrators an immense amount of problems, but resistance to change is good because it requires the people making the changes to think carefully about the innovations and to consider the human dynamics involved in implementing programs. So I thought that was important to read at the end. I thought that was a good statement there. Okay, that's my video. Thanks.